I don't know about you and what television you grew up with watching, but what I can tell you is that in my house, there's only a few shows that we can agree to watch together. One of them is Murder, She Wrote. Yes. We can watch it all day. Another one is Law and Order. Was raised on it. And then the other one is The Golden Girls. And we even go around, privately pointing out who's the Rose, who's the Blanche, who's the Dorothy. I always get labeled as the Dorothy in the group. That's all right. I accept it. She was smart. It was good. I won't tell you who Rose is, and I won't tell you who Blanche is, but what I can say in regards to our sermon today, I got to thinking about the Golden Girls because Rose, one of the characters on there, in real life, she's a very, very positive person. She always has something positive to say about just about everything. The same way she was in the show with her stories about Conflurfig-Nurgen and all these other weird things she would bring up back from St. Olaf. Whenever she had a story, it was always something to try to encourage people and to make things more positive. Now, I don't know if it has anything to do with why she is still the lasting survivor of all of them, but I speculate that a positive outlook on life might have something to do with it. I thought about her because as I was reading Isaiah this week, he starts out by saying, "The desert and the dry land will be glad. The wilderness will rejoice and blossom like the crocus." And I looked up crocus, and it's a plant that cannot bloom in a desert. They will burst into bloom and rejoice with joy and singing. They will receive the glory of Lebanon, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the Lord's glory and the splendor of our God. And I looked at Isaiah, and I just kept reading, and I said to myself, Isaiah, you sound a little bit like Rose. The people you are talking to are going through a really, really rough time. And here you come with this story from St. Olaf. Here you come talking about Conflurfig-Nurgen, and all they can see is that all around them, life is just not great. They are stranded in a foreign land. They are separated from a lot of their other people. And here you come, Isaiah/Rose, trying to paint this positive picture for them so that they could understand that God is about to do something amazing for them as a people. Can you imagine what it must be like if I walked up here and I said to you, "Behold, there shall be no more flooding in Houston ever again. Behold, race no longer exists. Behold, everyone has food on their table." That is what this sounded like to the people that Isaiah was writing to. The wilderness will bloom. Flowers will dance and sing. What are you talking about, Isaiah? That makes absolutely no sense. Given our present situation, there is nothing to rejoice about or to be joyful about. We don't have a home, and we are not even a full identified as people to these other people that we live amongst. And then you want to sit here and tell me we're going to travel back to Zion? We're going to travel back to Jerusalem? You mean we're going to cross that same desert in which millions of people died as we were being marshaled and marched across that desert into this land that we are now in? You mean to tell me we're going to cross that desert to go back home and it's going to be singing and dancing? Isaiah, you must be out of your mind. The same experience that our ancestors experienced. I don't know, Isaiah, don't you remember when they crossed the Red Sea, they wandered in the wilderness, in the desert for about 40 years? You want me to go back across the desert? But I think Isaiah is on to something. I think Isaiah is trying to communicate to them, trying to communicate to us that regardless of where you find yourself, regardless of your situation, somehow, some way, you must find a way to make the joy of the Lord your strength. Somehow, some way, in the midst of all that you may be going through, you have got to muster up that rose nylon kind of positivity about life. You have got to muster up a desert will bloom kind of joy in your life. If we only sit around and look at how dry the desert is, we may not be able to fully see that the desert is in bloom. We will miss all of the life that is sprouting up in the midst of the arid and dry places if we only focus on the negative of the situation that is happening, if we only focus on the things that we do not desire and the things that we do not want. Some metaphysical folks would tell you the more you focus on the thing that you are not wanting in your life, the more of it you will attract. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do know the more that I focus on the fact that we will be able to meet the budget, we will be able to do everything God has called us to do, we will be able to do more gifts. And the more I focused on that, so far it has been working out. I could have said, Lord, there's only 20 people in the pews back in 2017 and just kept focusing on the 20. But I said, Lord, in this desert place, in this arid place, it shall be full. Fill it up in your name. Fill it up for your glory. Numerous times a year I walk this room and lay hands on these pews and I say, God, it shall be full, not just with hopeless people and useless people. God send people of destiny, people of purpose, people who are wanting to do something with their lives, people who want to make a difference in this city. Fill them up. Fill it up, God. And bit by bit, I had to just keep looking not at what I see before me, but what God has placed on my heart as a vision for where we need to go. We can get distracted by appearances. Appearances are deceptive and manipulative. Appearances will have you believing that you are your situation. Appearances will have you believing that you can't do any better than what your parents did. Appearances will have you believing that your children are not people of purpose. Appearance will have you believing that you can't get out of the circumstance that you are in because you can't see past the negative number in your bank account. But Isaiah says the joy of the Lord can be your strength. See the desert blooming. I thought to myself, I said, what blooms in the desert? And then I remembered, after we bought our house 3 years ago, David Schultz, sitting here on the front row, who lit the candle today, he said to me, I was like, well, we're really worried. We want to, we got into all of the new homeowner stuff. It was like, what are we going to put in the yard? What are we going to do here? What are we going to do there? We got into all of this stuff. And David says to Marcus and I, he says, you should get some succulents. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not a gardener. And succulents just sounds a little suspect to me. It's not a cute name for any kind of a plant, a succulent. And I told Marcus, I said, what is on David's mind? He said we need to put some succulents out in the yard. I was like, what? So I got to Googling and looking, and then I figured out what these succulents are. A succulent, go back one picture, Jalen. A succulent, here's an example of one. They're interesting plants, and they can bloom in a desert. But the way that they are able to bloom and live and survive in a desert is because they have fleshy kind of leaves. They have a thickness to them. And the thickness they have is because when the conditions are right, when it's raining, and when there's moisture in the air in the desert, the succulent doesn't take all of the water and use it to live right then. The succulent holds on to the water so that it can survive the dry and arid places. The succulent keeps the water inside of it so that when it is needed, bit by bit, it releases moisture to itself so that it can survive. The succulent is able to survive the desert because it does not spend all of the water that it has consumed. I believe that what Isaiah is possibly seeing is the possibility of the blooming desert based off of these other succulent plants that he has possibly seen before. We will walk through a desert and not pay any attention to the fact that a desert can actually bloom, that there can be a bloom in the desert. Why am I talking about succulents? Well, let me make it a little bit more plain. In life, you will have some dry and arid places. In life, you will find yourself in a situation that when a man standing up in front of you tells you that a desert can bloom and that you can see beyond your circumstance, you may find yourself saying that that's not possible. But what I'm trying to explain to you is, if you would somehow be able to turn yourself into a succulent, maybe you would be able to reserve some of the joys you've experienced in your life so that you can get through the deserts in your life. We cannot forget all of the joy, all of the blessed rain, all of the blessed hope, all of the blessed peace that we have experienced. We have to be like the succulent and release that moisture into our life in the midst of desert and arid places. This highway that Isaiah is talking about is a highway, we could call it the highway of life. We are all traveling through this desert, and we have to figure out somehow, some way, how to be a succulent moving through the desert. We have to figure out somehow, some way to remember that God has blessed me before, and God will do it again. I may not understand the situation. I may not understand the circumstance. I may not understand what everybody else is doing around me and how they are treating me. I may not understand why my ministry cannot move in this particular direction. Oh, but there is a desert in bloom. I can be like the succulent and remember that God has done it before and God is ready to do it again. When we can remind ourselves that during this Advent, it is not just about God moving towards us. It is about us moving toward God. Advent is one of these times a year when I tell you, I just really don't like being on the road in Houston, Texas. I mark my words. Remember this next year. About a week before Thanksgiving, start paying attention to traffic. This time of year, through the beginning of the year, it is chaos on our streets. But what I feel when I'm driving is all the busyness and the hustle and the bustle and the anxiety of all of us trying to rush towards Christmas, trying to rush towards the end of the year, trying to wrap up all the things that has happened in this year. But I also know that it seems to me that a lot of not so great things happen around this time of year. When there is losing loved ones, bad diagnoses, troubles in families, which usually start at the Thanksgiving table. All of this going on. And somehow, some way during this journey, we have to figure out how to remember the good times. We have to figure out how to remember what God has indeed done for us. God can make happen again. If we are to lay claim and hold of what Isaiah has said and apply it to our lives, then we have to be like those succulents. Then it will be easier for us to move from I need you now to this joy that I have. The world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away. That's a song I learned early on in my Christian life. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. If we allow the situation and the circumstance to consume us, the joy is gone. If you would allow it to take over your entire life, then you're as good as a dead succulent in the desert, which is no good to nobody. But if you can claim your power and stand on your authority and say, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it and the world can't take it away. No, I may not have enough money for all the gifts I want to buy for Christmas. No, I may not be able to figure out how to pay this water bill. No, I may not be able to figure out what to do with this uncle that has run amok and is going crazy everywhere. But I know in the midst of this, I had a pastor that told me if I could act like a succulent and just declare declare that this joy that I have, the world didn't give it, and the world is not going to take it away from me. Yes, I may have lost my mama, but I know I'm going to be able to grieve, and God is going to heal. But this joy that I have, the world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. Through all of it, I can claim that a desert shall bloom because God said it so. Somebody said, weeping may endure for the night, but joy, 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 joy cometh in the morning. It cometh in the morning. Early in the morning, joy is busting forth. Let us not be consumed by all the noise. Oh God, let us not be consumed by the noise and to claim that joy is my strength. The desert is not an easy place to traverse. Don't fool yourself. This ain't paradise. It don't always rain when you want it to rain. Sometimes it don't even come at all. But this joy that we have, the world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. And all of God's people said, amen.